Mob of the Dead or Blood of the Dead? This is a debate that is as old as time itself, or at least as old as Black Ops 4, and it's a debate that I want to settle once and for all today by taking a look at both of these maps and figuring out which one is better. I'll be comparing these maps in 5 main categories: gameplay, characters, story, atmosphere, and then finally Easter egg. As for how I'm going to look at the maps, I'll go category by category, first looking at Mob of the Dead on its own, and then Blood of the Dead all on its own, and then I'll compare the two side by side in that category. I'm going to try and keep this video as unbiased as possible, but that's going to be difficult just because I absolutely adore both of these maps. And without any further ado, let's get right into it. Mob of the Dead is notable for being the first zombies map to have a more elaborate, cinematic method of progressing through the map. The map itself is set on Alcatraz Island and features the main prison, the docks, and the Golden Gate Bridge as the playable areas. Connecting the prison and the docks are a gondola lift that can be taken from the prison's 3rd story, and then the citadel/dungeon tunnels which run beneath the prison and then down to the docks. You start off the game in the spawn room, which consists of D Street and the library. Immediately upon loading into the game, you'll notice that there's a blue filter over your screen and your hands are blue and transparent. Player characters are scattered around spawn, sitting in what looks like a meditative state. You have to go and revive yourself before the game will start. That was Afterlife mode, and that is Mob of the Dead's main gameplay gimmick. Afterlife is a critical tool in the player's arsenal on Mob of the Dead, as important map progressions lie behind it. You have 4 main abilities while in Afterlife. You can shoot lightning from your hands, you can pass through certain walls, you have increased mobility, and you can revive yourself. There are many voltmeters, or electrical panels, and dials around the map that must be shocked to activate them. For example, every single perk machine in the map has a voltmeter next to it that must be shocked to power it up. You can also shock enemies, although this only teleports them elsewhere, and you can't actually kill enemies while in Afterlife. You need to use the traveling through walls ability to reach many of these shockable objects. The first major instance of this is obtaining the Warden's Key, an item that is quite literally the key to getting to Pack-a-Punch. The key will spawn in one of 2 places, but will start the game suspended from an electrified cable, meaning the player is unable to grab it. The panel electrifying the cable is on a balcony right behind the key, but it's out of reach, and you must enter Afterlife, jump up to the balcony through a fence, and then shock the panel electrifying the cable, and this will unelectrify the key, allowing you to grab it. Any walls that you run through are marked with this symbol, which is basically the Afterlife logo. The fast movement simply means you're able to get a lot done with the time you're given. Granted, you are familiar enough with the map, because Afterlife mode is on a 60-second timer by default, but doing anything other than just standing still will drain your timer faster. This means that you're usually able to do everything you need to and get back to where you started and get yourself revived before the timer runs out. The timer is at the bottom of the screen, again represented by the Afterlife logo. And that brings me to the final ability, reviving yourself. This is quite self-explanatory, as once you enter Afterlife mode, which requires your character to go down, you can revive yourself to get back up. If you don't revive yourself before the timer runs out, you'll just go into a normal down state. Your friends can always revive you though if you can't get back to yourself in time, granted you're playing in co-op. You need to go down to go into Afterlife, and there are 2 ways of accomplishing this, one good and one bad. The good way of going down to get into Afterlife is to interact with these red electrical panels scattered all around the map. There's usually at least one in every major room of the map. Using these boxes to enter Afterlife has no downside, as you will not lose your perks, you won't have an extra down added to the scoreboard. Using these to enter Afterlife doesn't even really count as going down in the game's eyes. If you're just trying to use Afterlife to progress the map, you're going to be using these quite a bit. Or, you can enter Afterlife by going down to zombies, explosive damage, fall damage. Anything other than these panels is going in Afterlife the bad way. You'll still get all the Afterlife abilities, but this counts as a down, so you'll have to go and rebuy all of your perks after you get revived. With such a powerful ability, I mean, you can literally just revive yourself again after you go down, it has to be limited. And above your ammo counter, you will see the Afterlife logo with a little number next to it, and this is how many times you can enter Afterlife. In multiplayer, the number just caps out at 1. You start the game with a charge, and if you use Afterlife, you will receive another charge the next round. In solo, you start off with 3 charges, but they still regenerate at the rate of 1 each round that you complete. This means you can bank up your Afterlife usages in solo and knock out a ton at once, but in multiplayer, more cooperation between players is required to get a lot done at a low round. Once your charges are all out, you can no longer interact with the red Afterlife boxes around the map, and going down will simply send you straight into the normal down state. I think Afterlife is one of the best things introduced into Mob of the Dead. There was really nothing else like it in Zombies before at this point, and it gives the early game progression much more of a deliberate feel than many other maps that have come both before and since. Mob of the Dead's layout is very vertical, not quite on the same level as a map like Die Rise, but a lot of the time when you're traveling around the map, you're going up or down. The map has the docks and the Citadel at the bottom, and then you've got the main cell block, the cafeteria, the showers, the warden's office, all that's in the middle chunk of the map, and then you've got the infirmary and the roof up at the top. But even more important than just having a big map to play on is whether or not the map makes all of its space worthwhile to utilize. Thankfully, Mob of the Dead passes with flying colors, as every single major location on the map has something important to do there. Unlocking Pack-a-Punch is the most complex that it had ever been up till that point on Mob of the Dead. You need to build a plane on the roof of the prison to fly to the Golden Gate Bridge, which is where the Pack-a-Punch machine is located, and you can get to the roof, up through the infirmary, which is on the top third floor of the main prison block. Building the plane requires 5 plane parts, all of which require the Warden's Key to acquire. Luckily, we've already talked about how to get the Warden's Key, so we'll just skip right to the parts. The easiest part to get is the control valve. These are inside of a locked case inside of the infirmary. You just need to unlock the case and bring the valves up to the roof. This pretty much acts as a tutorial for the whole plane part system. The next part is the clothes. These are located in the showers inside of a washing machine. You need the key to get into the room where the washing machine is located, then you need to use Afterlife to actually turn on the power for the washing machine. Once it's powered on, you can interact with it to start a short lockdown sequence where you'll be trapped and down in the showers as a lot of zombies spawn. Simply survive the horde and you'll be able to grab the freshly washed clothes from the washing machine to put on the plane. Next is the rigging for the plane, and this is where the parts start to get a bit more involved. And the Citadels is a large spiral section that leads down from the prison to the docks. At the top of the spiral is an Afterlife box, and at the bottom is a number pad that you need to unlock with the Warden's Key. You can also see a cage waiting at the top of the spiral with the plane part that we need. If you go into Afterlife and go down the spiral, you'll see 3 numbers written on the wall as you go down, and you can only see these numbers in Afterlife mode. Enter these 3 numbers into the number pad and the cage will descend, and you have a short window of time to get to the cage, which can be accessed from an adjacent room. And you can get into the cage using the Warden's Key. You can go in and you can grab the plane rigging. Then is the engine, which is located inside of the Warden's office, but it's behind an electrified door. If you go up to the door, you'll be shocked, so you have to turn off the electricity somehow. This can be done down at the docks inside of the generator room. If you go into Afterlife, you'll see 3 electrical panels with glowing cables running to one of the generators. If you shock a panel, the cable will stop glowing. Shock all of the panels, one of which is behind a wall that you have to go through in Afterlife mode, and you'll blow up the generator, disabling power to the electrified door. Now you can go up and grab the engine piece from the Warden's office, as once the electricity is off, you just use the Warden's Key to unlock the door, you go in and you can grab the part. Finally is the propane tank down at the docks. This one changes how you get it depending on whether or not you're playing solo or co-op. In solo, you just unlock the first gate with the Warden's Key, then go into Afterlife and shock the voltmeter to open the second gate. In co-op, you unlock the first gate just the same, but shocking the voltmeter opens the second gate and closes the first gate, kind of like an airlock. This means that you need to work with someone else to shock the voltmeter at the right time so you can go in, grab the tank, and then get in without being trapped inside of this dead-end hallway. In solo, you can hold as many plane parts as you want at once, but in multiplayer, you're restricted to holding one at a time, so it's best to kind of plan your routes out when you're getting the parts in multiplayer, just so you don't obtain a part but you can't pick it up, and you'd have to do more running around. It's just unnecessary. There are also these nifty maps all over the prison that tell you where each of the plane parts are located, as well as where the Warden's Key is located. Once you find a part, it will be marked off of the map, meaning that even a new player can get a decent enough idea of what they're doing if they just take a moment and pay attention to the environment. Once you build the plane, you can interact with it to begin the takeoff sequence, and everyone will have a short window of time to board the plane before it leaves and flies off of the roof. Anyone who doesn't get on in time will just be left at the prison. The plane flies away from the prison, which might trick first-time players into thinking that their escape attempt has been successful, but after a short time the plane crashes into one of the towers of the Golden Gate Bridge, and the players fall down to the road of the bridge, and you got a few seconds of peace with no enemies to kind of just take everything in, and it's like a calm before the storm. The Golden Gate Bridge is where the Pack-a-Punch machine is located, and it's also the most open part of the map, making it a really good training spot. You have to be careful though, because pretty much every single part of the bridge acts as a spawn point for zombies, so it can be very easy if you're not paying attention for zombies to spawn in front of you and trap you and mess up your train and make you go down. At the end of the bridge, there's a set of 4 electric chairs with a sign above them written in blood that says, "No one escapes alive." If you interact with the electric chairs, you'll strap yourself in. After a few seconds, lightning will strike the bridge, sending a lethal amount of electricity through the players, killing them. You then wake back up where you started on D Street in the spawn room, forced to do it all over again. Returning to the bridge to pack a punch again is as simple as returning to the locations where you got the 5 plane parts, as they are now replaced with 5 gas cans that you need to use to refuel the plane. Just take the gas cans back up to the plane, refuel it. Once you've done everything, you can go back to the bridge. This is what you'll be doing for most of the early to mid game of Mob of the Dead, but what special unique tools does the map give you to help accomplish these goals? Mob of the Dead has most of the standard Black Ops 2 mystery box guns, which is good because Black Ops 2 in particular has one of the most mixed bag mystery boxes in the entire series, which makes it a lot more exciting in my opinion than a lot of the newer games where basically every gun is good or at least usable. Black Ops 2 still has some duds, which makes it a lot more exciting and makes it more of a risk-reward thing because there's a very good chance that you'll get something bad. There are also a good handful of unique and rare guns on this map that either rarely appear in Zombies or didn't appear on any other maps at all, in Black Ops 2 at least. The LSAT returns to the mystery box after appearing in Nuketown Zombies. The Uzi is a wall gun that can be found in the Infirmary and in the Citadels. The 1927 Tommy gun can be found at the docks, which really helps to fit the 1920s gangster setting of the map, and it's honestly one of my favorite guns in all of Zombies. But the AK-47 also makes its first appearance in a Zombies map as a box gun here. And lastly, the Death Machine makes its only appearance in Black Ops 2 as a mystery box gun, as opposed to being a power-up like it is in Black Ops 1 and 3. One of the things that is lacking from Mob of the Dead are monkey bombs, because they aren't in the mystery box here, as there's a new tactical equipment that they want you to use, the Hell's Retriever. Around the map are 3 outlines of dogs. The first one is almost immediately outside of the spawn room if you leave through the library. If you kill a zombie in a vicinity of an outline, a portal will open up and a hellhound will emerge. Kill a zombie near the zombie will fly into the dog's mouth and the dog will eat it. Feed the hellhound 6 or so zombies and it will go away, leaving just the dog outline on the wall, now glowing. There are 2 other dogs on the map, one in the infirmary and then one at the docks. Do the same thing with the other dogs, and then if you go down to the Citadel, there used to be a wall, but there will now be an opening and you can go inside and grab your reward, the Hell's Retriever, a demonic, hellish tomahawk. This thing is sweet. It has infinite uses, it just has a recharge after using it, and you can charge it up for more damage. It can fly through and kill multiple zombies in one throw, and it can also grab power-ups, which is very helpful on a map that is as close quarters as Mob of the Dead, where you otherwise might not be able to get to a power-up if it drops because zombies are just in your way and you can't kill them fast enough. The Retriever kills zombies reliably until round 20, making it a really useful tool in your arsenal. There's also the map's main wonder weapon, the Blundergat. It's a quadruple barrel shotgun that only has 1 shot per reload, but it shreds through any zombies in its way. The Blundergat is also unique because it's the first wonder weapon in Zombies that has multiple upgrade paths. You can just pack a punch it normally and it will become the Sweeper. The Sweeper is super high damage, just making it a really good tool if you just want to kill as many zombies as possible. You also get 2 shots per reload now, meaning you can kill more zombies before reloading. Or you can upgrade it to the Acid Gat. To build the Acid Gat, you must find the 3 pieces of the Acid Gat kit. The motor spawns inside of the warden's office, the case can be found somewhere in the main cell block, and the acid can be found up in the infirmary. The Acid Gat kit can be built on one of the 3 buildable tables around the island. There's one in the cafeteria, one on the top floor of the prison, and one down at the docks. Once the kit is assembled, you can put a Blundergat in, you get an Acid Gat out. The Acid Gat really shines once you pack-a-punch it, as it becomes the Vitrolic Withering. This gives it a 3-round burst firing mode, and it shoots a whole volley of these acid bombs. The big upgrade is that now they have a monkey bomb effect on it, attracting zombies to the acid bomb. This is a great save me weapon, as if you get cornered you can just spam the Vitrolic Withering to keep the zombies from hitting you, and you'll clear the way. I think both these weapons are great, and it's really good that there isn't one that completely outshines the other. The Vitrolic Withering is generally the more popular and considered the better of the 2, but its killing power drops off much quicker than the Sweeper. The Sweeper can one-shot zombies up until round 40. It's super powerful. There's also a zombie shield that you can build, making its return from transit. The shield requires 3 parts, all of which can be found down at the docks. The first is the dolly, which is actually at the waterfront part of the docks. The clamp can be found inside the generator building, and the cell door can be found in the Citadel or in the area right behind the generator building. It can be built at any of the aforementioned buildable tables and will protect you from hits from behind once on your back, or hits from your front if you hold it out. You can also place it down on the ground and sit behind it to camp, but it's not really ever used like this. The shield is a vital piece of equipment and it'll save your life a ton. Definitely take the couple minutes it takes to build it whenever you play Mob of the Dead. The perks offered on Mob of the Dead are quite limited. There are only 5. Juggernog, Double Tap, Speed Cola, Deadshot Daiquiri, and the new perk, Electric Cherry. Electric Cherry sends out a burst of electricity around you while you reload, which kills zombies on low rounds, but for most of the game it'll just stun them. It costs 2,000 points and is usually one of the 4 perks people choose on this map. Sadly, it isn't really much of a decision on what 4 perks to get, as Deadshot is clearly the worst perk here. If they replaced Deadshot with something like Stamina, it'd be much more of a tough choice, but 99% of people are just going to skip over Deadshot. Juggernog is located down at the docks in this corner near where the gondola takes you. Double Tap is in the Citadel through the entrance outside of the Warden's office. Speed Cola is inside of the Warden's office. Deadshot is in the infirmary just outside the stairway to the roof, and Electric Cherry is on the top floor of the cell block right next to the gondola station. The most glaring omission is that there is no quick revive, as Afterlife mode pretty much fills the role of an infinite quick revive, so the actual perk would be very redundant here. As for the actual long-term gameplay, Mob of the Dead is the most fun when you're getting set up. Once you've done everything and you're just passing through the rounds just to reach a high round, I feel the game just isn't anywhere near as engaging, although this can be said for a lot of zombies maps. There are a lot of good training spots like the cafeteria, the bridge, the showers, but you don't have the super OP wonder weapon like a Sliquifier or an Ice Staff. Both Blundergat variants stopped killing by the early 40s. You can use the traps on the map, but these are a pretty slow way to progress rounds. The map design is very claustrophobic, but all the hallways, at least most of the hallways, are wide enough for 2 player-sized hitboxes to pass through, so skilled players can still dodge and weave through zombies. This is with the exception of a few choke points, like the stairs to the roof. But what good is a prison without a warden? And Mob of the Dead's warden is Brutus, the map's main boss. Brutus is a prison guard boss zombie clad in full riot armor and wielding a club as a weapon. He first spawns in anywhere between rounds 5 and 7, and then every couple rounds after that. He's a super intimidating boss zombie. He roars as he spawns in and he'll make the ground shake when he runs. He also hits for more damage than a normal zombie. He has quite a lot of health, so headshots are the best way of dispatching him. You can shoot his helmet off to expose his head for easier kills, but if he loses his helmet, he'll throw down smoke grenades that make it nearly impossible to see if you're in their vicinity. Once he's killed, he drops a random power-up. Brutus will normally only be able to spawn in once per round, except for at the bridge. When you first go to the bridge, 1 Brutus will spawn, and this number will increase by 1 for every consecutive round you spend at the bridge, with up to 4 Brudi being able to be on the bridge at once. Although he's scary, Brutus isn't actually all that difficult. His health really isn't too high if you land your headshots, and he can be very easy to maneuver around due to his slower speed. A lot of the cool stuff with Brutus comes from the other ways he can hurt the players, namely, financially. If Brutus gets close to the mystery box, a buildable table, any powered on perk machines, or the plane, he can lock them down by hitting them with his club. Anything that he locks down will be locked, and someone will have to pay 2,000 points to unlock it. This means you have to be careful with where you take Brutus, otherwise you'll have to pay the price, literally. Brutus can break all the boards off of windows to let zombies spawn in quicker. He's immune to most of the traps, and sometimes he'll just teleport to a random player to catch them off guard. And he's also immune to the Vitrolic Withering's Monkey Bomb effect. I think Brutus is a really fun boss zombie. He's just such a looming threat for the entire game that you play. So overall, I think Mob of the Dead is one of the best early and mid-game setups out of any zombies map, and a really cool boss zombie, but it starts to become a bit boring as you progress into the later game. Blood of the Dead starts with the player spawning in inside of Richtofen's lab, one of the buildings in a whole new part of the map, the West Ground. The West Grounds includes Richtofen's lab, the powerhouse, and the new industries building. The West Grounds is connected to the rest of the map by the catwalk and the recreation yard. The door of the catwalk is locked by default and must be powered on to be open. This is probably the most fundamental difference between Mob of the Dead and Blood of the Dead, and it's that Blood of the Dead completely does away with the afterlife mechanic. The map returns to the typical zombies map way of powering up the map, and that there are 2 power switches that must be powered on. The first of these switches is at the powerhouse in the West Grounds. Once you flip the switch, you can progress through the catwalk to the main portion of the map. Blood of the Dead follows Mob of the Dead's trend of making zombies maps cinematic, and the biggest example of this is the catwalk sequence. Every game when you open up the catwalk door, all the zombies will become sprinters and you'll have to fight your way through a narrow hallway to get to the rec yard, with zombies sticking their arms through the walls to deal damage to you. Once you make it to the rec yard, you can see Brutus giving a speech rallying up the zombies and a pack of hellhounds. Once he's done with the speech, he'll teleport away and knock out a power line from the West Grounds in the process, which means you have to turn on a separate power switch for the actual prison itself. Hellhounds will now spawn alongside zombies in the rec yard portion of the sequence. Just fight your way through the rec yard and you will reach the cell block entrance, which was inaccessible on Mob of the Dead. Nonetheless, you've reached the prison. This portion of the map is identical to how it was on Mob of the Dead, with the exception of the cell block entrance room and the roof being a bit smaller than it was on the original Mob of the Dead. There's also another new area, Eagle Plaza and the Warden's house. You get to these areas by going through the Warden's office, as a wall that was normal on Mob of the Dead has been broken to act as a doorway here, letting you get to this new area. But you can't get anywhere until the power is on, as a lot of doors are locked until the power is on, and the power switch is down at the docks inside the generator building, now called Building 63. Fun fact, the power switch you need to flip on can be any one of these 3 switches. Don't you just love needless randomization? Once you turn on the second power switch, a Brutus will spawn in, and once he's killed, you're free to explore the whole map as it will all be accessible now. Getting Pack-a-Punch works a lot differently on Blood than it does on Mob. If you go up to the roof, you'll notice that there's no plane or takeoff ramp anymore, and that the iconic "No one escapes alive" sign is up here instead of on the bridge. This is because sadly the bridge is not a playable area on Blood of the Dead. Rest in peace, Golden Gate Bridge. To get Pack-a-Punch, you need to build the map's shield, the Spectral Shield. The shield requires 3 pieces, and the first is the Warden's Key. This one is really easy to get as it'll drop from the first Brutus that you kill, and all you have to do is pick it up once it drops. The second part is the Spectral Essence, and this is a glowing blue energy that you can collect off of one of the red Afterlife boxes on the ground floor of the main cell block part of the map. The final part is the cell door, which spawns in the same places as its counterpart did on Mob of the Dead, either in the Citadel tunnels or in China Alley right behind Building 63. Once all the parts are collected, you need to build the shield at one of the 3 buildable locations. One is in the New Industries building, one is in the cell block's 3rd floor, up by the gondola, and the last is down by the docks. The Spectral Shield, you can suck out zombies as souls using the Warden's Key. For every 3 souls that you suck, you'll get a Spectral Blast, and this is Blood of the Dead's version of Afterlife Lightning. If you see a voltmeter on the map, you power it up with the shield's Spectral Blast. Take your shield with the Spectral Blast charged up to the roof, and next to the "No one escapes alive" sign will be a voltmeter. Shoot it and spirits will fly around you and build the Pack-a-Punch machine out of a pile of scrap for you. A Brutus will also spawn in after Pack-a-Punch is activated, so be mindful of that. This is where a big problem comes in, and it's that Pack-a-Punch moves on this map. It can either be on the roof, at Building 63, or at the powerhouse, and this isn't a problem in and of itself, as plenty of maps have a moving Pack-a-Punch that is integrated well into the actual map. The problem comes from how there's no way to know which location Pack-a-Punch is at without just running all over the map and checking every spot. This is just horrendous game design, especially with a map as large as Blood of the Dead. Even Voyage of Despair, another Black Ops 4 launch map with a moving Pack-a-Punch, tells you where the current Pack-a-Punch machine is located. There's absolutely no reason for something like this to be absent on Blood of the Dead. It can seriously take the wind out of your sails if you get unlucky, and if the last place you check be the place where the machine is at. Because this is a Black Ops 4 map, there are only 4 perk locations on the map. The brew machine is at the powerhouse, the cola is at the docks, the soda is in the infirmary, and the tonic is in the warden's office. The Health Retriever returns, as does the method of acquiring it. You need to feed the 3 Hellhounds scattered across the map. The first is inside of the New Industries building, the second is in the cell block, this one is in the exact same place as the cell block dog and mob was, and the final dog is in Eagle Plaza just past the warden's office. Once you fill up all 3 dogs, you can head to where you got the retriever on mob, and you notice that it's not there anymore, as the floor has been broken and the retriever is now sitting beneath its room in a lava-filled chamber. To claim the retriever, you need to take the map's newly introduced mode of transportation, the fast travel tunnel. There are 2 of these, and they pretty much make a straight line across the whole map, as the first is from New Industries to the cafeteria, and the second is from the warden's house to the showers, and the warden's house to the showers tunnel is the one that we need to use. This is because the warden's house to showers tunnel runs directly beneath the room where the retriever was in mob, and right through where the retriever currently is, which means you're able to grab it as you're teleporting past it. The Hell's Retriever is nowhere near as useful as it was in Black Ops 2, as there's only 1 equipment spot, and the Wraithfires are just broken and overpowered to the point where there's no real reason not to use those. But the Retriever is still a very fun weapon to use if you don't mind taking the objective power hit. Blundergat also returns as the main wonder weapon, but with a new upgrade variant. You start with the base Blundergat, which you can then Pack-a-Punch to get the sweeper. Simple. Then you have the Acid Gat, which much like Mob of the Dead, you need to build the Acid Gat kit first. And the 3 pieces are, again, the case, the motor, and the acid. The case is inside of this hallway connecting the powerhouse and New Industries, and it's a pretty pricey door to pay just to get this part, but the other parts are much easier. The motor is in the Sally port next to the warden's office, in the locked room where the engine was for the plane on Mob. You just have to unlock this door with the key, and the part is yours. And the acid bottle again spawns in the infirmary, and this one spawns in the same cabinet where the valve spawned the Mob of the Dead. Same with the motor, just need the warden's key to unlock the case and get the part. Pack-a-Punch to the Acid Gat to get the Vitrolic Withering. Both these Blundergats are still very good, but they pale in comparison to the map's new variant, the Magma Gat. To get the Magmagat, you first need a normal Blundergat. You then place the Blundergat into the fireplace in the Warden's house, and then you need to get kills inside of the Warden's house. All zombies that you kill will drop their souls on the ground. If you pick up 12 souls, you can then grab the Blundergat back from the fireplace, and now you have the tempered Blundergat. The challenge now is to run the Blundergat back to the New Industries building without the blue fire going out. There are blue flaming barrels along the route the game wants you to take, and you can reignite the fire on the gun by just walking up to these barrels. Once you get back to the New Industries building, you can interact with this large hydraulic press. Spirits will spawn in and use the press, and the resulting gun will be the Magmagat. You can upgrade the Magmagat further by Pack-a-Punching it, turning it into the Magma Operandi. This is by far the strongest Blundergat variant. It shoots balls of lava that attract zombies better than the Acid Gat, and the zombies will burn to death from the lava. This thing literally melts zombies, and it pretty much smites Hellhounds, and it's super effective against Brutus if you lead your shots a bit. Although the Magmagat is the best, the other two variants aren't nerfed or anything to make the Magmagat seem better. The Magmagat is just that strong. The Magmagat just has the best of both worlds. It has the killing power of the Sweeper and the distraction ability of the Acid Gat. And as for other guns on the map, the M1927 returns, although it isn't exclusive to Blood of the Dead in Black Ops 4. It still fits the setting very well. But it isn't as useful as a points gun in Black Ops 4 just due to the fact that the point system is damage based. Aside from this, all the guns here are just standard Black Ops 4 guns. Brutus returns as the primary boss zombie in Blood of the Dead, and he's pretty much identical to his Mob of the Dead counterpart, but he's got a new move, this electric ground pound move. Aside from that, he's pretty much the exact same. He can lock down your perks in the box and buildable tables, he can teleport around, you can shoot his helmet off. He's pretty much just Brutus, not much has changed. But Hellhounds also appear as a secondary boss zombie, spawning both in their own dedicated round every 5 to 6 rounds, and then also alongside normal zombies starting on round 15. They also have their first round, the round immediately after you clear the catwalk, and you won't have one occur before that point. But aside from that, the Hellhound rounds are very basic. You fight a bunch of them, then get a max ammo at the end. Very standard dog round stuff. I will say that the Hellhounds are great for refilling the Spectral Blast on the shield, as their souls can be harvested much quicker than normal zombies, because normal zombies take a good few seconds to drain. Hellhounds are near instantaneous. One of the biggest step downs from Mob of the Dead in Blood of the Dead is that the map flow is much worse overall, and there are two main reasons of that. Firstly is that the new areas feel like they've just been very awkwardly stapled onto the front and the back of the main cell block from Mob. It takes a ton of running to get to these new areas from the center of the map, and this is much worse with the West Grounds as opposed to the Warden's house, but it's bad with both of them. And sure, you can take the fast travel, except the fast travel is actually pretty slow. I get that it's cinematic and cool the first couple times, but it's just not very practical, and I rarely find myself ever using the fast travel outside of getting the Hell's Retriever and a couple of other Easter eggs. At least with the Cafeteria to New Industries fast travel, you can avoid the Rec Yard and the Catwalk, which are some of the most tight, dangerous, close quarters parts on the map, especially on the higher rounds, but the showers to the Warden's house fast travel is pretty much pointless outside of getting the Retriever. This is also bad because there's barely any reason to go back to these areas past the mid-game, unless you're doing Easter egg, but we'll talk about that later. My other problem is that the map was just not made to accommodate Black Ops 4 zombies as a game mode, as the tighter corridors were more manageable in Black Ops 2, where the mode was a bit slower overall and was easier to slip past zombies. But sometimes the zombies in Black Ops 4 turn to Michael Jordan from the end of Space Jam and will hit you even when you feel like you should be out of their range. I don't know if it's just me, but the zombies in Black Ops 4 have a crazy wingspan, and this isn't even just a Blood of the Dead problem, but it's a problem with the game as a whole for me. Because of this, the map doesn't play as smooth as Mob of the Dead did, and that's just a symptom of putting this map into a game that it just was not designed to be a part of. The actual setup is much more simple and less engaging than Mob of the Dead, with the exception of the catwalk, which that is a very cool feature. But I think Blood of the Dead, in contrast to Mob, thrives in the late game once you're all set up. Due to Black Ops 4 zombies having a health cap in the mid-30s, the wonder weapons never get a chance to stop being good, and this makes the high rounds a lot more fun to me than on Mob of the Dead because you continue to rely on the tools that you've invested time into getting throughout the course of your match. I think that the map that has better gameplay really depends on what you're looking for. If you just want a quicker, more exciting game of zombies, I would definitely recommend Mob of the Dead. But if you want to commit a couple hours to your match, I would say go play Blood of the Dead. But now that I've thoroughly discussed the core gameplay of the maps, let's talk about a quicker category, the characters. The character section of the video is going to be much quicker than the gameplay section. It'll just be a fast overview of the characters, and I'll save the more in-depth stuff for the story section. Mob of the Dead stars 4 actors who are well vested in crime and mob movies, among other things, such as Ray Liotta as Billy Handsome, Liotta is probably best known for his role as Henry in Goodfellas, but he also played Tommy Vercetti in Grand Theft Auto Vice City, the bad guy in Cocaine Bear, and in the very critically acclaimed classic, The Bee Movie, where he played himself.
Now, this isn't a good fella, this is a bad fella!
Michael Madsen plays Finn O'Leary, and I'm most familiar with his work in the Tarantino movies, such as Mr. Blonde and Reservoir Dogs, and Bud and Kill Bill, but I also really liked him as Louise's boyfriend in Thelma and Louise, which that was a smaller role than some of his other roles, but I thought he did a great job there. Chaz Palminteri plays Salvatore De Luca, and his most iconic work is A Bronx Tale, both the one-man play that he wrote and then the actual movie adaptation of it that he stars in as Sonny. And finally, Joe Pantoliano plays Al Weasel Arlington, which Pantoliano was in The Sopranos, which I haven't watched yet, so I can't comment on how good he was in it, but he also played Cypher in The Matrix. Billy Handsome is a sinister character. He was a hitman for the mob who was convicted of 116 murders, and of the whole group, he seems to take the most pleasure out of killing the zombies.
Still alive? Good! I can watch you suffer!
And even when they figure out that they're in a purgatory loop to pay for their sins, he refuses to repent, saying he doesn't regret anything.
That's it, isn't it? Am I stuck here until I see the error of my ways? Until I repent? Well, you're gonna have to wait a long time, because I don't regret a damn thing!
Daddy had no idea, did he, Billy? Just a hard-working Joe, trying to put food on the table for his wife and son. He thought he was the only one bringing money into the house. He had no idea what was really going on. You knew, didn't you? You saw and you heard everything. Even as a lost little boy, you knew what the truth would do if it ever came out. It had to end sometime, Billy. You just happened to be the one who ended it. It's ironic, isn't it, Billy? The harder you try not to feel anything, the more it actually hurts. You used to think you could push it all onto someone else. Someone who actually deserved it. So many victims. So much pain. But you can't push it away, can you? Even when you hurt others, it doesn't make it stop, does it? You ought to just accept what you are, Billy. A monster. You always seemed like such a sweet boy, Billy. Losing your mother must have been so hard for you. So young. So beautiful. Everyone told you how brave you were. Everyone but your father. Do you think he knew the truth, Billy? What really went on in that cold, dark heart of yours?
Finn O'Leary is much more laid back in comparison to Billy because he was the gambling guy in the gang that they were part of. So he isn't as bloodthirsty as Billy, but he also has a bit of an aggressive side.
So, you think I don't know a fucking scam when I see it?
But he's also kind of the comedic guy of the group. He makes jokes more often than the others, and he kind of lightens the mood a bit.
Don't touch me, you fucking goofy looking bastard.
Sal DeLuca is the most stereotypical mobster out of the whole group, since he was the leader of the gang that all the characters were a part of before being sent to Alcatraz. So he's the mob boss, he talks with the accent, and he kind of assumes the position of group leader, although in a situation as hellish and horrible as the characters are stuck in, an actual hierarchy isn't really in place.
I'm done. I don't know what the fuck is going on, but I ain't playing no more. Either wake me up, or just fucking kill me already.
Lastly, we have Weasel, who is the most important of the four characters, and I'll cover him more in depth in the story section, but he's the most intelligent of the group. He's a con man and a heister by trade. He's the one who designed Icarus, the plane that you used to get off of the island into the Golden Gate Bridge, but this is overshadowed by just his hopeless attitude.
They don't see a man when they look at you. They see a weasel, a rat. You're a survivor, Al. No shame in that. Even a rat survives.
He's the smallest and weakest physically of the group, which comes into play in the actual story, and he's just very depressed overall by the situation that the characters are in, which, honestly, who can blame him?
They all think it's me. They think I did something to them. They think it's another scheme, some ruse, a game. I didn't do anything. Why won't they believe me? I just want to understand. I don't even know why I'm here. I'm not like the others. I'm not like them at all. Sal, Handsome, Finn, they're all stone-cold killers. Those bastards are evil to the core. So why me? Why am I here? Why, damn it?
So needless to say, these characters aren't good people, and that's really the point. They aren't supposed to be. as it's a critical part of the map story, which, again, hate to beat a dead horse, we'll get to that later. Nonetheless, the characters are all super entertaining with some top-notch writing and acting from all involved, and I really like the Mob of the Dead crew, but I can't really rank it over the other celebrity casts, as I think they're all outstanding. On its own though, Mob of the Dead has an excellent cast of characters. Blood of the Dead replaces the celebrity cast with the Primus crew, who are some of the main characters in Call of Duty Zombies. You have Tank Dempsey, Nikolai Belinsky, Takeo Masaki, and Dr. Edward Richtofen. And the two characters who get the most focus here are by far Richtofen and Nikolai. Richtofen is pretty much the main character of Black Ops 3 Zombies, and this is the map that really breaks him. He's scrambling and failing to try and find a way to get the crew out of Alcatraz, and doubts are starting to bubble up in the rest of the group if he's really a worthy leader for them.
I see your accusing glances, Nikolai. Is there something you wish to say to me?
Why bother? That is what you always say, eh? All will be forgotten anyway.
Dempsey thinks they should continue listening to Richtofen, meanwhile Nikolai thinks Richtofen isn't fit to lead anymore, and there's some really good dialogue between these two about Nikolai's potential mutiny against Richtofen.
We have been comrades for a long time, have we not, Dempsey? If something happened to Richtofen, comrades can depend on each other, yeah?
Look, I think I know what you're getting at, Nick, but you need to stow it, Ricky Tick. Turning on your own teammate? That's bad fucking karma. Looks like there's enough of that going on around here.
And then you have Takeo, who I normally don't care for all that much. I don't dislike him or anything, but he's normally just my least favorite of the four, except for maps where he really shines, like Zetsubo no Shima, but for the most part, he kind of just fades into the background when I think of the Primus group. But in this map, I really like his writing. He's on a whole nother level here, and honestly might be my favorite out of the crew on this map.
Stop looking so damned morose, Takeo. This place was not created to be your own personal hell.
Was it not? Fate willed it into creation, and fate has delivered us here, as we attempt once again to disrupt the natural order. The scales will be balanced.
This mostly comes from his quotes when you're playing in solo, where I think his stoic warrior persona really gets tested by the fact that he's literally facing hell, and it's just very, very cool. He's a very cool character in this map.
I cannot recall the last time I felt stillness. Even now, when it is silent, my soul churns like the sea in a typhoon.
And honestly, this might seem unpopular, but I have to say Blood of the Dead has the better characters. The Mob of the Dead characters are still excellent, don't get me wrong, but the Primus crew just have so much more development already going into Blood of the Dead, whereas Mob's characters are more one note with the exception of Weasel. Characters can sound really good in a quick summary, but in reality they're only as good as the story that they're a part of. So let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture and examine Mob of the Dead and Blood of the Dead stories and see which one is better. Mob of the Dead story is about a cycle, and the cycle either being broken or forced to continue. So before the events of the map, the four characters, Sal, Finn, Billy, and Weasel, were all sent to Alcatraz to serve sentences for their different crimes that they committed. The four would plan an escape attempt in which Weasel designed the Icarus, a plane made out of parts that they could acquire throughout the prison grounds. They would break out of their cells and build the plane on the roof, then fly off of the island using the plane. On New Year's Eve, 1933, the plan was put into action. Things go wrong when Sal, Finn, and Billy realize that the plane plan would never work, and they believe that Weasel had tricked them. With it being too late to turn back, the three of them attack Weasel and leave him to bleed to death on the roof of Alcatraz prison. Sal, Finn, and Billy were caught, and on January 19th, 1934, all three were sentenced to the electric chair for the murder of Al Arlington. This is where the real world part of the story ends and the cycle begins. After the execution, the four mobsters' souls end up in what is essentially a purgatory dimension. The four of them wake up on December 31st, 1933, completely unaware of the failed escape attempt and their subsequent executions. So they go ahead with the escape plan, starting out with the Weasel luring a guard, Stanley Ferguson, to his cell and murdering him for his keys. Weasel frees the others, but then problems arise shortly after. First, Stanley Ferguson comes back as a zombie, and then the whole prison turns into a zombie-infested hellscape. The four are overrun, die, and then come back to life to do it all over again. Eventually, the prisoners are able to accomplish their escape plan despite the zombies, and the plane actually works, but it ends up crashing into the Golden Gate Bridge, where they die again and must start the cycle over again. Eventually, they all come to understand what is happening to them, and they remember that they're really dead because of Al's failure in the real world. They go through the cycle one last time and revive their bodies on the Golden Gate Bridge, and here comes the big fork in the road for the story. So either Sal, Finn, and Billy will kill Weasel on the bridge, dooming themselves to continue the cycle for all eternity, or Weasel kills the three of them, breaking the cycle and freeing his own soul. And the choice is up to you. Mind you, the whole time the prisoners are being tormented by Stanley Ferguson, the guard, who becomes Brutus, the main obstacle that the prisoners face outside of themselves as a result of him becoming a victim of their escape attempts inside of the cycle. But as Brutus says in some of the in-game dialogue, he's trapped in purgatory as well, just like the prisoners, a continuous casualty of their endless cycle. That's the main story of Mob of the Dead as it was in Black Ops 2, and I know some of the stuff was retconned and changed later on, and I definitely have some opinions about that, but I think on its own, Mob of the Dead shines as one of Zombies' best stories. I think Mob of the Dead's biggest strength is just how standalone it is, because it is a completely self-contained story which is not at all the norm with Zombies. This is even more reinforced by the fact that the map's connections to the greater Zombies universe were very, very light at first, with one line from Weasel being the only real thing that connected this to anything else. And even that could have been written off as just a fun Easter egg line, not to be taken too seriously had that been the direction they wanted to go. This is a Zombies map that has a concrete beginning, middle, and several possible endpoints for the story based on your actions, and it does all this alongside with introducing a whole new cast of characters, all in one map. I think it's very easy to see why Mob of the Dead story is considered one of the greats, and I personally think that it is the best story in any individual map in Zombies history. So now we get to Blood of the Dead story, which I am much more mixed on than Mob of the Dead's. And for starters, quite a bit of context is needed to understand this story, so if you already know all the context, skip to the time on screen right now. I don't want to waste your time if I don't have to, but if you are unfamiliar, then strap in because there's quite a bit that I have to give you the rundown for. The Call of Duty Zombies timeline, from World at War to Black Ops 4, is essentially a giant time loop. It is a cycle that gets reset an infinite number of times. So every single match that you play of most of these maps is considered canonical, fun fact. This big cycle is broken up into many smaller cycles that follow different groups of characters. And I don't know if cycle is the right word for some of these, but they're basically the different journeys that the different groups of characters go on. So you have the Ultimate cycle from Shido Numa to Moon, Victus from Transit to Buried, and then Primus from Origins to Revelation. The fourth and fifth maps of the Primus cycle are Zetsubo no Shima and Gorod Krovi, respectively. It is a very important detail to the story that Richtofen has a secret lab on Alcatraz Island that he built with the help of Stanley Ferguson and the Illuminati to store blood vials and the transit crew. Between Zetsubo and Gorod Krovi, the Primus crew makes a pit stop to Richtofen's lab on Alcatraz Island to grab 2 blood vials containing the blood of Sal and Finn from Mob of the Dead. This is in order to keep the cycle going, as if he doesn't have the blood vials, then Malcolm McDowell will have no reason not to erase the Primus crew from existence. The blood vials cause a paradox, prolonging the cycle. Got it? And the one other big thing to note is that Richtofen is aware of the cycle, whereas the other characters are not. The normal, usual trip to the lab to grab the blood is seen in the comics, but Blood of the Dead shows us this trip, but right from the get-go it plays out differently than it should, with the crew arriving in Alcatraz at a different place than they should arrive from. Richtofen and the crew arrive at the lab after traversing through the prison, only to be told by another version of Richtofen that the Chronorium, a book that can tell the future, is being rewritten. This essentially spells out that the cycle is broken, and Richtofen and the rest of the Primus crew are trapped and will need to find some other way to escape the Purgatory dimension. They have to earn the trust of the spirit of Al Arlington, now represented by a seagull spirit, and all the other prisoners, all while distrust is being sown in their own group. They end up discovering the dark secrets of the Warden, how he made a deal with the Shadow Man, which is basically the Call of Duty Zombies equivalent of Satan, to have the 4 mobsters killed to turn the island into a purgatory dimension. The Warden would subsequently be told to use an electric chair on himself in order to follow the mobsters into purgatory. He's given the form of Brutus and pretends to be Stanley Ferguson to mess with the mobsters during their cycle, but once their cycle's broken, he's kind of just left on the island with no one to torment. Once the Primus crew are stuck on the island and try to flee, the Warden destroys their exit portal, trapping them on the island so he can harvest Richtofen's blood, which is filled with so much 115 energy due to how many times he's been through the cycle and different portals, that the Warden can power up his own dark mechanism so he can continue serving the Shadow Man. Eventually, the Primus crew finds the Warden's hidden room inside of the Warden's house, where his corpse can still be found in the electric chair. This is where they do most of their work from now on to earn the trust of the spirits of the island. Eventually, they put the summoning key inside of the hollowed out chest cavity of the Warden, but then they're caught off guard by him in his Brutus form. Brutus locks up the Primus crew and monologues for a bit before leaving them to rot in their cells. The spirit of Arlington frees the Primus crew, and the spirits of the island begin to rebel against the Warden. Primus finds a secret cryopod in Richtofen's lab that they begin thawing as they go to fight the Warden. The crew goes to fight the Warden in a courtyard area where his dark mechanism is located. As the fight goes on, the machine is powered on, but the crew are no closer to beating the Warden. Also, the Warden is giant now. Richtofen realizes what he must do, and gets into the Warden's machine, which begins to drain the blood from his body. At the same time, the cryopod in the lab finally thaws out, revealing another Richtofen. And this Richtofen has seen the end of the cycle, and is armed with the Fire Staff Crystal from Origins and the Revelations ending. He enters the battle and uses the crystal to make the Warden vulnerable. The Primus crew finally slays the Warden. That, combined with the Fire Crystal, frees the souls of all those trapped on the island. The new Richtofen goes up to the old Richtofen, who is still in the machine, and just leaves him there to die, as it's needed to power up the Primus crew's portals out of the dimension. The new Richtofen assumes the role of the group's Richtofen and bestows the Chronorium to Nikolai, essentially crowning him the new leader of the group. Old Richtofen has one last speech before his friends leave him to bleed out, and Richtofen dies as the color drains from the screen, closing out the map. I think the Blood of the Dead story has some really good stuff to it, but there's a lot of it that I'm a lot more mixed on. And my biggest dislike is how they retcon Brutus to just having been the Warden the whole time. Stanley Ferguson being Brutus and being trapped in purgatory with the mobsters was one of my favorite aspects of Mob of the Dead story, especially because it wasn't super explicitly spelled out for you. You really had to pay attention to Brutus's dialogue and compare it to Ferguson's dialogue in the intro cutscene to put together. Sal has a line where he thinks Brutus might be Ferguson, but it's just his guess.
You hear some of the shit that thing's saying? I think it's Ferguson.
This also made Brutus quite a tragic character, as a lot of his dialogue conveys.
I was always nice to you. I had a life, a wife and son. I'm trapped here, just like you.
Gonna be the real deal this time.
This better be the real deal this time.
Changing it said he was always the Warden and was just pretending to be Ferguson to mess with the mobsters is just a really weird and kind of pointless change in my opinion, and it really cheapens that part of Mob of the Dead in retrospect. There's also the whole point of this map being where the cycle is broken and where the Black Ops 4 arc of the Ether story begins, but I don't think it's ever explicitly said why the cycle breaks on this particular iteration. It just kind of feels like it does because the writers needed it to, in my opinion. If there's a particular reason why the cycle breaks that I'm simply unaware of, please let me know in the comments because I would love to know. And I'm looking for a more in-depth answer than they arrived at Alcatraz at the wrong spot. I want to know why they got sent to the wrong spot at all. But the character writing on this map is absolutely top-notch. This is the darkest chapter of the Primus story, which is already the darkest arc of any zombies game to begin with. The characters are at rock bottom, and they have some wonderful dialogue here. Everyone's great, but my standouts are definitely Richtofen and, as I stated before, Takeo. The big highlight of this map, though, is easily the ending cutscene, because that final monologue from Richtofen as he's strapped into the machine and the rest of his crew leaves him to die is absolutely tear-jerking on a first-time watch.
Hello? Hello? I'm still here. Wait! My God. What have I done? I honestly thought you were going to let me bleed to death. It was so sad.
The cycle is broken, Herr Doctor. As such, insurance policies are no longer needed. I wish I could tell you I was sorry, Edward. But I'm not.
No! No, you can help me! You're a doctor! Wait! Don't you know who I am? I have been witness to miracles and calamities! Dimensions born and collapse! I walk a path no other can take! No! I want to be me. Someone who did all the hard work! I wanted
This me. Mercedes. You won't even remember.
I think in the story department, Mob of the Dead is superior. You know, its story might not have as much going on as Blood of the Dead's. Blood of the Dead definitely has way more moving parts, but it's much more just tightly written overall than Blood of the Dead, despite Blood of the Dead having some great character moments. But now that we've discussed the stories of both maps, I think it's time to shift our focus to another very important aspect of map making, the atmosphere. Mob of the Dead's atmosphere helps to stand in stark contrast to the rest of the Zombies maps in Black Ops 2. The island of Alcatraz is a purgatory for the four mobsters, but it looks more like hell. And this is definitely the most horror-esque map in Black Ops 2, but it's definitely more horror-themed than it is horrifying, because it's not really all that scary. The four mobsters, for starters, are all covered in blood from the very get-go, and there's a great air of mystery at the start of the game, as none of the mobsters know what the hell's going on. Weasel knows a little bit, you know, he has the greatest understanding of the group, but that's like saying, I don't know, a high schooler knows more about theoretical physics than a kindergartner. Like, obviously, but like, how deep is that knowledge really gonna go? The zombies on the map are horrifying looking. They're an assortment of prisoners and prison guards. The guards are filled with visible shrapnel protruding from their bodies, but the prisoners are tangled up in chains and barbed wire, and some of them are even wearing electric chair helmets. The prison itself is in complete shambles. There's debris everywhere, there's fires everywhere, there's blood everywhere. There are bleeding corpses hanging from meat hooks all over the map, and it's definitely a bit excessive, but it sets a very grim mood, and it's very fitting for a zombies game. Then there's the Hellhounds, which add to the demonic aesthetic of the map, plus the Tomahawk is literally called the Hell's Retriever. Alcatraz is actually a great location for a horror-themed map, as the island itself is considered one of the most haunted locations in the entire world. Even if you don't believe much in the supernatural or the paranormal, it's still got that stigma around it, which makes it really good for creepy themed things. But I think the creepiest part on the map itself is the Citadel. The Citadel is super fascinating to me, as it's currently all that remains of the original structure that was on the island, Fort Alcatraz, which was built in the 1850s and served during the Civil War. It was very quickly determined that the island served well as a prison, which it functioned as for the military for decades. Eventually the fort would be demolished and the actual prison structures were built on the island, and the Citadel is all that's left. Little fun facts like this are why I love when zombies maps use real life locations as their settings, as there's just so much more to research and learn about the actual locations themselves. The Golden Gate Bridge is also a great place to end the journey that you go on throughout the map. Crashing on the bridge makes you feel like you're just so close, yet still so far from escaping, as the zombies and Brutus follow you even out there. This isn't helped by the grisly scene at the end of the bridge, the whole no one escapes alive thing, above the 4 electric chairs, which is also accompanied by 4 more hanging bodies, hinting towards the fate that awaits the mobsters. This is also further reinforced by the real-life reputation that the Golden Gate Bridge has as a popular spot for, you know, like I'm not allowed to say it on YouTube, but if you know, you know. There's also the map's Pack-a-Lunch camo, which is super cool looking in my opinion. It makes your gun look like it's all made out of black rock, and it's got cracks and sigils in it that glow orange, and it is super cool looking. Not as cool as the multiplayer version, where the orange was replaced by blue, but obviously that's multiplayer. This is zombies, so I'm not counting that. The map itself has an outstanding atmosphere, but it's taken to a whole nother level by the map's original score, which Mob of the Dead was actually the first ever zombies map to have a whole original score, aside from the Game Over music and the Easter egg song. You would think that a map like Mob of the Dead would try to make its soundtrack as scary as possible to really sell the horror, but Mob's soundtrack goes in a whole different direction. Still has some scary music, like there's the infirmary theme, and the Citadel's theme. But the music is generally much more low-key. There's even some triumphant tracks, like the roof theme. The theme for when you take off with the plane starts off triumphant as well, but its tone becomes darker once the plane hits turbulence and then eventually crashes into the bridge. But I think the map's best track is the theme song. This track plays as the loading screen music, and it also plays every single time you crash into the bridge and wake up on the bridge. It's a somber and reflective piece, with the main melody being made up of just a simple acoustic guitar track. Its placement right as you crash at the bridge, and the characters start to realize how futile their efforts have been, is awesome.
Look, there's another one of those machines.
Track. Where's everything else?
Anyone else more than a little creeped out by all this?
I think I know what's going on.
Those monsters are on the bridge too.
And it really kind of hammers home the sad fact that no one escapes alive. Was that corny? I think that was a little corny. Blood of the Dead's atmosphere is similar, but it's a lot more overtly hellish. There's a lot more exposed lava on this one, to say the least. And I think this is good because the stakes for the Primus crew are much higher than they've ever been before. Most of the horror imagery stays the same as it was on Mob, so I don't need to rehash all that again. Body bags, fire, you get it. The color palette on Blood of the Dead leans much more into a cool color palette. There's a lot more blues, and the map isn't quite as well lit up as it is on Mob of the Dead. This makes the prison feel very hostile, much colder towards the Primus crew, and I think this is a good change, because even though the mobsters were stuck in purgatory in Alcatraz, they're already deeply familiar with the island just due to the fact that they were serving sentences there before their deaths. You know, it was a familiar hell. But this is completely unfamiliar for Primus, so it's good that it kind of feels that way, it feels more threatening. One of the scariest areas of the map is by far the hidden room in the Warden's house, because it's filled with all of his occult materials, as well as remnants from his other experiments that he's done. The whole room just gives me the creeps, and the worst part is the Warden's smoking corpse in the electric chair, always staring you down whenever you're in the room. He reminds me of the execution gone wrong scene in the Green Mile. You know, this whole room just gives me the heebie-jeebies. The scariest part of the whole map is the Pack-a-Punch camo. Because it looks horrible. I think it's supposed to be spectral energy flowing over your gun, which is a cool idea since this map's way more about the ghosts, you know, and the spirits, but it looks nasty. This game also sets the precedent that was set by Horizon Drop, where a map's Pack-a-Punch camo will have various colors that the players will randomly get, and a lot of the colors on this camo look bad, but especially the yellow. I seriously don't know why they didn't just reuse the Afterlife camo for Mob. Even if they wanted multiple colors, Afterlife is literally already in Black Ops 4 as a reactive camo, and it looks gorgeous in all 4 colors that it switches between. But personally, I bet it's way easier to sell that camo in loot boxes, which is what Afterlife was dedicated to, a loot box camo, than have it be on the map as the actual Pack-a-Punch camo. They make some more money that way. And once again, we are brought to the soundtrack of the map, and while I think that the wholly original songs that they made for Blood are still good, the best of the soundtrack are the new versions and reprisals of the old soundtrack from Mob of the Dead. And again, my personal favorite is the reprise of the original Mob of the Dead theme, which plays as you first arrive in the cell block, particularly the old spawn room. I really like how the song is reused one final time in the Easter egg cutscene, but now with the solo trumpet part accompanying the guitar, and this gives the song much more of a triumphant feel, really letting you bask in the glory of finishing the main quest before the music fades out altogether during Richtofen's death scene.
The spirits sing. They are free of this realm.
Ain't that swell? Does that mean we win?
I would be greatly relieved if that were so. I am in no hurry to ensnare my mortal soul.
That will not be necessary, Nikolai. The future has changed. Read it. Learn of your true calling. You must keep your soul. It will be needed to defeat Dr. Monty.
Who?
I prefer the atmosphere of the original Mob of the Dead, but I think Blood of the Dead does an admirable job at making some slight stylistic changes with the map and the music to fit the different tone that the map is going for. And we're getting very close to the end now, with only one major section left, the Easter eggs. So let's not waste any more time. Alright, so for the Easter egg section, I'm going to start with the smaller Easter eggs, then work my way up to the map's main quest, saving that for the end of the particular map section. Starting off with Mob of the Dead's Easter eggs, we have the musical Easter eggs. First is Rusty Cage by Johnny Cash, and this is the song that plays in the intro once stuff starts to hit the fan. It can be started by interacting with 3 whiskey bottles around the map. The first is in the library in Spawn, the second is in the infirmary on this table, and the third one is down at the docks in this corner by where you get the propane tanks. The song is really good, and it's a cover of a Soundgarden song for those who are unaware. I think Cage did a really good job of covering it, but I prefer the first part of the song, and the second part where it slows down a bit I'm not as big of a fan of, but it's still a very well made song, and I really like it. Next up, we have the Samantha's Lullaby Easter egg. This classic Zombies track will play if you just don't do anything when the game starts. Don't revive yourself, let your afterlife meter run out, and once everyone bleeds out, you'll get a unique game over sequence with this song playing. It's very iconic to Call of Duty Zombies, as, Samantha's theme song pretty much. But I don't like that the Easter egg pretty much needs you to end the game before it even gets started. I would much prefer it if it could be activated in some other way, but it's still really cool that it's here in the first place, because this took people quite a while to discover, I'm pretty sure. And finally, we have the Kevin Sherwood song of the map, Where Are We Going? To play the song, you simply need to enter the numbers 935 into the numbers pad down at the bottom of the Citadel Spiral. The song is an absolute banger. It's sung by Maluka, who does the vocals in a lot of the more slow, lesser heavy Easter egg songs in Zombies, and I believe this is actually the first song that she did for Call of Duty Zombies. This is one of the shortest Easter egg songs in the whole series, clocking in at under 2.5 minutes. It starts off quite slow and quiet, but the second half of the song increases the intensity a bit. The lyrics are also very fitting for the map. The repeated phrase, "Where are we going?" pretty perfectly sums up what is troubling the mobsters. They aren't going anywhere. They're stuck in a cycle. I think it's a perfect fitting song and is definitely my favorite of the Easter egg songs on the map, and I'm really glad that they bring it back in Blood of the Dead, but we'll get to that later. Music Easter eggs overall are very solid on this map, with the exception of the Samantha's Lullaby Easter egg, since obviously you have to sacrifice your whole match to even get it to activate. Up next, we have the Hell's Redeemer, the upgraded version of the Hell's Retriever. First step is simply get the Retriever and get kills with it. You'll hear an audio cue, and now you have to head to the bridge. Now get kills there on the bridge with only using the Retriever, no kills with guns. Don't even shoot them, just play it safe, just only use the Retriever. You'll hear another audio cue, and at this point you're pretty much done. Turn to the prison and go to the Hellhound in the cell block. Underneath where the dog spawns, you'll see a large lava pit, which you can actually throw grenades down there for 20 points, fun fact. Throw your Hell's Retriever down there and the lava pit will eat it. It won't recharge, and now you have to progress into the next round. Now enter Afterlife mode, and it's easy to do this at the power box and the showers, but you could use any of them if you're quick enough. Once you're in Afterlife mode, return to the spot where you grabbed the Retriever in the first place, and now you have the ability to claim the upgraded Retriever called the Hell's Redeemer. This is an upgrade in every single way. It does infinite damage, so it's always effective at killing zombies, and it can be charged up further than the Retriever, so you can kill more zombies in a single throw with it. And it's blue now, which blue's cool. And this is a pretty easy upgrade to do, and I do it pretty much every single time I play mob. I typically get all my required kills on my first trip to the bridge, so I normally have it by round 15, 16 or so. It's not too difficult of a quest. You can upgrade the Sniper Tower Trap at the docks into being a Rocket Tower Trap. Simply activate the Sniper Tower, and while it's active, a secret voltmeter will be revealed, and you can go into Afterlife mode and shock the meter to upgrade the tower so that it shoots rockets. Up next, we have the iconic Golden Sport. To get this, you need to either have the Retriever or the Redeemer, and to have been to the bridge at least once. Once these requirements are met, go to Michigan Avenue, and look on the right side for a cell with a movie poster in it for the movie The Tomb of the Mask. Throw your tomahawk at the poster, and it will disappear, showing a hole in the wall, revealing an Afterlife logo on the wall behind the cell. Now you can go into Afterlife and enter this little area behind the cells, and there's a skull on the ground with a spoon lying next to it. Shock the spoon, and it'll disappear. Now go to the cafeteria and look through the window that the zombies can spawn in from that's at the back of the cafeteria, and on the table to the left there will be a spoon. Throw your Retriever or Redeemer at the spoon to pick it up, and it'll become your new melee weapon. This is already a big step up from the normal knife, but it can be upgraded even further. To upgrade the spoon into the Golden Sport, you need either the Acid Gat or the Vitrolic Withering, but I highly recommend just getting the Vitrolic Withering. Go up to the infirmary and find the bathtub filled with blood. Interact with it and your spoon will go into the tub and start stirring the blood in the tub. Now go down to the showers and just get kills down there with the Acid Gat until you hear a laughing audio cue. It takes quite a lot of kills, so don't be discouraged if it takes a little while. Once you've heard the audio cue, you can return to the bathtub in the infirmary and interact with it again. A hand will rise from the blood holding your prize, the Golden Sport. This is an outstanding melee weapon, as it can one-hit zombies until round 34. Much like the Redeemer, it isn't too difficult to get, so I recommend doing this pretty much every game, as it just gives you more things to do during your match. And then there are some smaller Easter eggs, like how you can see the mule kick and the PhD flopper machines out of bounds of the docks. In the intro cutscene, the Weasel kills Ferguson at 9:35 p.m., which is obviously a super important number in Zombies, 935.
9:35, the Weasel launches into a song and dance routine.
But there's one last big-ish Easter egg to talk about before the big Easter egg quest, and that is the free Blundergat Easter egg. To get this, you need to either get the Retriever or Redeemer, and around the map there are 5 glowing blue skulls that are invisible normally but can be seen in Afterlife mode. You need to throw your Retriever or Redeemer at each of these 5 skulls to get your free Blundergat. The first skull is in the cell right outside of the library at spawn. Second is on this utility pole outside of the warden's office. The third is on the roof way at the back at the far left corner. The fourth is on this wooden post at the docks. And the final and most difficult skull is on this light pole along the gondola path. You're supposed to get it while riding the gondola, which is incredibly difficult to consistently pull off. Luckily, you can get this one from the ground if you go to the corner where Juggernog is, as you're pretty much directly underneath the skull in that spot. Once you get all the skulls, go to the warden's office. A whirlwind of fire forms on top of the warden's desk, and rising up from it is your prize, a free Blundergat. Like all these other Easter eggs, this one's really easy to do, and I believe that this is the only way to get multiple Blundergats on Mob of the Dead, as I'm pretty sure only one can be obtained from the mystery box. And now we have the big one, Mob of the Dead's main Easter egg quest, Pop Goes the Weasel. This Easter egg is very simple, as we've actually already discussed most of the steps just by talking about the other Easter eggs on the map. First of all, you need to get the Retriever and take the plane. Simple enough, that's pretty basic setup. Now you need to get the Spoon melee weapon, which is also very simple. Then you have to get the skulls for the free Blundergat and claim it, as well as use the Acid Gat kit. That's pretty much just setting up on the map. Now you have to go to the bridge 2 more times, or at least 3 times in total, to progress the egg to the final steps. Once you return from the bridge for the 3rd time, you're basically done with the Easter egg. Now you have to go to the Citadel tunnels and use the number pad to enter in 4 numbers in this order: 101, 872, 386, and 481. These are the prison numbers for our 4 mobsters. Now, unique drop will spawn, a glowing pair of headphones. These are audio recording drops, or audio log drops. The game will go black and white, and you basically have to follow a trail of these audio logs from the Citadel up to the roof as Stanley Ferguson recounts the event of the New Year's Eve escape attempt and the subsequent execution of the other 3 mobsters. Now everyone has to go into Afterlife and board the plane in spirit form. The plane will fly to the bridge one last time, and the bodies of the 4 mobsters will all be in the electric chairs. Everyone needs to revive themselves and get ready for the boss fight. But this is a fight between players, very unusual for Call of Duty Zombies, between Weasel and the other 3. Weasel has an increased health bar, and all the zombies will ignore him during the fight, but the other players will have a numbers advantage, so it's pretty well balanced all things considered. And this is where the branching endings of the map come in. If Weasel wins, the cycle is broken and they can all finally move on. But if the other 3 win, then the cycle continues and they're doomed to go through the whole thing again, and probably forever. This Easter egg is really good, if a bit easy and very, very simple, but compared to the Victus Easter eggs from Black Ops 2 that were kind of the norm for that game, this looks like a masterpiece in comparison. This Easter egg isn't as complex or as long as a lot of the Easter eggs we got in Black Ops 3 and 4, but I think that's okay, especially considering that this map laid the groundwork for a lot of what those maps would kind of copy going forward, as this was Jason Blundell's first Zombies map that he directed. And I'd rather have an Easter egg that's short but sweet than one that is overlong and filled with bad steps. Blood of the Dead has more Easter eggs on it than Mob does, so let's not waste any time and get right into them. First, we have some returning Easter eggs. There's the musical Easter egg, which is a new, longer version of Where Are We Going? The version feels very much in the style of the original song, but bigger, the slower and quieter first half, and a bombastic second half. It's a really good way to describe Blood of the Dead as a whole. Mob of the Dead, but bigger and more bombastic, but sometimes more quiet and somber. The free Blundergat Easter egg returns and is much the same as it was on Mob. You still need to hit 5 skulls with the Retriever. The Warden's office, library, and dock skulls are in exactly the same places. The roof skulls have been moved just because much less of the roof is accessible in Blood since there's no plane and no ramp. So it's behind the pack puncher to the right instead of at the back left, but it's still on the roof. The final skull's been moved to the west grounds, and it's on this catwalk on the left immediately after you leave Richtofen's lab. And since there's no afterlife mode, you can only see these skulls by using the aim button while holding out the shield. The window on the shield will act as a window to the spectral realm, which is how you look for anything ghost related on this map, and it's very important in Easter eggs. Once you get all 5 skulls, go to the warden's office, the fire spins up on the desk, and you get the free Blundergat. The Hell's Redeemer shows up again as well, although it's much more convoluted to get. First, you need to get the Retriever, which is easy enough, fill up the dogs, and then, go get it through the fast travel tunnel underneath where it was. Simple. Then you need to get a lot of kills in the wreck yard portion of the map. And this is best done ASAP if you're going for the Redeemer, because this area becomes super dangerous once the zombies' aggression starts to go up. Once you kill enough zombies, you'll hear a wolf howl. Then you have to check one of around 10 locations in either the Wreck Yard, the Citadel, or Eagle Plaza for a blue outline of a wolf on the wall. This is the same outline as the one marking where the Hellhounds you feed for the Reaver spawn, except it's blue. This outline will only be visible in spectral vision, but when you find it, throw the Retriever at it, and your Retriever will disappear or not recharge like when you throw it into the lava in Mob of the Dead. Now you need to progress to the next dog round. Once you're on a dog round, you'll need to check around the whole map for a spirit wolf only visible in spectral vision. Dog will leave behind blue paw prints on the ground, so look for those as well. When you find the dog, shoot him with the Spirit Blast. After you shot him with the Spirit Blast, take the fast travel tunnel and collect your Redeemer. The Redeemer's still good, but it's a lot less good than it was on Mob because, as I said earlier, you only have one special equipment slot in the game, and Wraithfires are just better. So you can get the Redeemer if you want, but I wouldn't recommend it as heavily as I would on Mob of the Dead. There's an Easter egg you can do to get free monkey bombs, and it's pretty easy to do. You just need to first level up your specialist to level 2, which can just be done getting kills, or you can use a talisman to do that. But you take your specialist to this little dead end next to the library, and you'll see a stone monkey bomb hanging precariously over the lava pit. Just get specialist weapon kills in this hallway, and the zombie souls will go into the monkey bomb, and get enough kills and the monkey's head will start glowing red. Now you just shoot at it and it'll fly upwards. Then go back to Richtofen's lab, and your free monkey bombs will be waiting on this little mini teleporter pad waiting to be claimed. There's also a hidden shield upgrade that you can acquire with the Hell's Retriever, the shield, and a mystery box. Simply spin the box until you get the lock, this map and Mob of the Dead's version of the teddy bear. Then drain the lock with your shield like it's a zombie you're trying to steal its soul, and the glowing part of the lock will turn blue. Now throw your Retriever at the lock before it flies away, and your shield will be upgraded to the attuned spectral shield. I'm not sure if it increases the health of the shield, but it definitely increases the maximum spectral blast charges you can hold, which is very useful if you're doing the Easter egg. Melee weapon upgrades return as well, but this time there are 4 of them, and going for all these in one game may as well be a whole Easter egg quest in and of itself. So let's take a look at them. First off, we have the spoon. If you go to the Citadel tunnels and look at the elevator, which held the rigging for the plane on Mob, you'll see a skeleton holding a spoon. This is what we're looking for, but we need to get it out of there first. Go to the warden's office, and with your back facing the fireplace, use your shield spectral vision. You'll see 3 number codes on the pillars and wall of the office. Go and put this code into the numbers pad of the Citadel, and the lift will drop and fall into the water below. Now you need the Retriever for this next part. Go to the docks and blast this voltmeter with the spectral blast. This will cause a crane to lift a net out of the ocean and will lower it over the docks. If you've done the step with the code in the Citadel, the skeleton's arm will be hanging out of the net, clutching a spoon, which is your melee weapon. Throw the Retriever at the skeleton's arm to cut it down, and it'll fall onto this crate. Now just go up to it and claim your spoon. Up next is the Golden Spork, and this is pretty similar to how you got it on Mob, but with some differences at the very end. Take your spoon to the infirmary and go to what was the blood-filled tub on Mob of the Dead. On Blood, it's just a tub, and you put the spoon at the bottom of it. Now you need to fill up the tub by getting kills on the roof with either the Magma Gat or the Acid Gat. Once you have enough kills, you'll get an audio cue and can return to the tub. Unlike Mob, interacting with the tub doesn't give you the spork, instead it drains the blood from the tub, with the spork nowhere to be seen. Now comes the cool part, the cinematic part. You need to go to the catwalk / rec yard and look at the water tower in the West Grounds area next to the powerhouse. You need to shoot off all the scrap metal portions on those support legs of the tower, and once you shoot them all, the water tower will collapse, and you need to go to the round middle portion of the catwalk. The spork will be on a tree branch in front of where the water tower was. Throw your Retriever at it on the tree branch and you can collect the Golden Spork. Convoluted, but still nothing too crazy. In Mob of the Dead, this would be the end of the melee upgrades, but we're only halfway done. Up next is the Golden Scalpel, and you need both the Golden Spork and the Hell's Redeemer to do this. You need to get 100 kills with the Golden Spork first of all, and once you're done, the water in this tub in the new industries section will turn into blood. Interact with it and a skeleton's hand will take away your Golden Spork. You now need to become a geologist, as you need to collect 3 stones from around the map. A green one is in the cell block, red one is on top of the warden's house, and a blue one is down at the docks. You need to throw your Redeemer at the stones to collect them. Now put the stones at each of the 3 traps around the map, which I forgot to mention, there were traps on Mob of the Dead. You know, there's the fan trap at the warden's office, acid showers at the cafeteria, and then there was the sniper tower trap. On Blood of the Dead, there is the chain trap, fan trap again, and then there is the acid showers again. Chain trap is at the New Industries. Forgot to mention those in the actual gameplay portion, but here they are. I've mentioned them now. You place these stones at each of the 3 traps around the map. Again, chain trap, acid trap, and fan trap, and you need to get 75 kills with each of these traps to refine the stones into gems. The last piece you need is the golden chunk, and this is inside of the fast travel tunnel between the cafeteria and New Industries. So you need to go from the cafeteria to New Industries, and you can throw the Redeemer at the golden chunk while the gate for the tunnel is still open. That will knock down the gold, making it able to be picked up. Now take all of your gems and your gold to the Magna Gap Press in New Industries building, and you can construct your golden scalpel. And the final upgrade is the golden spork knife, which combines the spork and the scalpel together into one mega melee weapon. Once you get the scalpel, immediately return to the bloody tub in New Industries and give your scalpel to the skeleton again in the tub. Now on the catwalk, you will see a knife with Sal DeLuca's prison number patch stabbed into the Regulation 666 sign. You need to kill a warden with melee right next to the sign, and if done correctly, Sal's numbers will fall to the ground for you to pick up. Now just return to the New Industries tub, interact with it, and claim your final prize, the golden spork knife. I think this is a really cool chain of quests, and the final spork knife is an outstanding melee weapon, as it one-hit kills everything forever. Zombies, dogs, and wardens. Forever. But now that we've covered pretty much everything else, it's time for what you've all been waiting for, Blood of the Dead's main Easter egg quest, Most Escape Alive, the Big Kahuna. I actually just did this quest for the first time only a week or 2 before writing this portion of the script, which it'd take me about 5.5 years. That's how long it'd take me to do this quest, because that's how bad the reputation that it has is. But enough procrastinating, let's get right into it and see if this quest is quite as bad as its reputation would lead you to believe. Step 1 is very simple, unleash the spirits. This sees you powering on the map, building the shield, and unlocking Pack-a-Punch. This is technically a step of the quest, but it's really more or less just getting your basic setup done. Step 2 is shock and denial. The goal of this step is to find and access the warden's secret room. First, you need to get the spoon, which we covered just a little bit ago, and once you have the spoon, you head to the warden's house. There's a staircase that leads seemingly nowhere, with a wall with some weird coloring on the left side of this little hallway. Melee the weird wall on the left with the spoon, and you will scratch it. You need Brutus to do his slam attack next to this wall, but he doesn't do the slam attack naturally until round 17. You can always just wait for round 17 for him to do the attack, but there's a much quicker and easier way, and that's monkey bombs. Brutus will do his slam to disable monkey bombs no matter what round. So you can do the free monkey bomb Easter egg, and then the spawning in a Brutus Easter egg, where you shock the number pad down to the Citadel, and then enter in 666 to force spawn a Brutus, and then you can do that to open up that wall, no matter what round you're on. No matter how you do it though, when Brutus does the slam attack on the scratched wall, the wall will break, revealing the hidden room. Go into the room and interact with the electric chair to reveal the warden's corpse, and then interact with the small red stone on the table near the door to pick it up. Step 3, Pain and Guilt. Take the red stone from the warden's house back to spawn and put it into the map in Richtofen's lab. The Cronorium, which has been lying on the floor of the lab, will begin to glow blue. Go interact with it, and a spirit seagull will steal the book. Now you have to spend the next 4 rounds at least of your game finding the bird. There are apparently 52 locations he can be in, which sounds really bad, but he's actually quite easy to find. If you enter spectral vision with the shield during this step and you are near the bird, you'll hear seagull sounds, and they'll get louder the closer you get. The bird is only visible in spectral vision though, so you need to use that to confirm where he's at. Once you find him, shoot him with the spectral blast from the shield. Once you blast the bird, he'll fly away and then respawn the next round. Do this first part 3 times. On the 4th time, the bird will be invisible even in spectral vision, though you can still use the audio cues to locate him. And if you stare where the bird is at for long enough in spectral vision, you'll see a flash confirming that that is where he's at. The bird spawns are very limited for the 4th round, so you can only really spawn in the warden's house area, the Citadel, the docks, or the showers. And once you've located the invisible bird, go to the number pad, shoot it, and type in 872 to spawn in a zombie blood power-up. Temporal Gift is very helpful for this step just because it makes the zombie blood last longer. While in zombie blood, you have to go to where the bird is at, confirm his location with spectral vision, and you can see him with special vision whenever in zombie blood, and you throw your retriever at him, and this will make him drop the chronorium and you can pick it up. Step 4, anger and bargaining. This is the longest step of the egg, and in my opinion, the worst. This is pretty much the whole middle half of the Easter egg. Go back to the warden's secret room and interact with his body. You'll place your chronorium on his lap, and the pages will begin to flap around and fly around sporadically. Interact with the book to stop the pages from flipping, and use spectral vision to look at the book. You'll see a 3-number combination. Enter the numbers into the Citadel number pad, and you'll be assigned one of 5 random challenges to complete. They are all required to beat the quest, although the order to receive them in is random. The lighthouse next to the warden's house will shine a beam of light to one of the 5 locations that you can find the challenge at on the island. Find the beam, shock the orb that is there. The orb is only visible in spectral vision, because of course, and you'll begin the challenge. The 5 challenges, in no particular order, are the Showers Challenge. This one is quite easy and actually a lot of fun. Once you start the challenge, a ghost will spawn in who is playing a very out-of-tune banjo. If you interact with the ghost, he'll give you the banjo, and now you need to stand in flaming rings throughout the showers and fill the banjo up with souls. In co-op, the player holding the banjo has to be the one to get the kills. After you've gathered enough souls, an audio cue will play letting you know the banjo is now in tune. Give the banjo back to the ghost and he'll drop a red orb for you to pick up, completing the challenge. The Docks Challenge. Once you lock in the challenge, you have to go to the warden's office. In the Sally port, on the table where the acid get piece was, is a Morse code machine. You need to enter a number in Morse code to progress. You could always just brute force it, like most people did for the first handful of years after the map released. This definitely works, as there's no penalty for getting the combination wrong other than just having to restart and hearing the warden laugh at you. But this isn't the intended way to do it. The actual way to do it is to look for 3 buoys out in the waters around the island, and if you look at them in spectral vision, they will be blinking a number in Morse code. You're supposed to take the sum of the different numbers that the buoys are blinking and enter that into the machine. This, Morse code of the sum of those 3 numbers. Either way works, and I'd honestly recommend just brute forcing it if you don't want to bring up a Morse code chart to understand the buoys. It might honestly be quicker just to brute force it. Once the code has been entered, go to the infirmary. Kill a zombie with the key with your shield and blast his ghost with the shield. And this ghost is a soul box. Fill him up and eventually he'll start following one of the players. You need to keep him full of souls and just lead him back down to the docks where you accepted the challenge at. The easiest method of doing this is just to take the gondola, since it's right outside of the infirmary anyway. Once you lead him back down there, the ghost will walk into the beam of light and drop a red orb, completing the challenge. The New Industries Challenge. Kill a zombie with the shield key in the Mob of the Dead spawn room, which this spawns a ghost who's making a beeline to kill another ghost in the New Industries building, and we need to stop the ghost who has murderous intent. If you blast him with the shield, he becomes susceptible to being drained by the key, but after a bit he'll disappear again and need to be blasted again to become vulnerable, and it takes at least 5 shield blasts to fully drain him. The ghost will become more and more red as you drain him, and you'll know you're finished when he sticks his arms out in a different pose as usual. Now you just have to wait for him to get to New Industries, and you can use the chain trap to kill him as if he was a zombie. If you're successful, he'll die, and he'll drop a red orb after being killed by the trap, and you'll finish the challenge. I would absolutely recommend the upgraded shield for this, as the extra spirit blasts will come in super handy. The Michigan Avenue Challenge. Kill a zombie with the key in the cafeteria and spirit blast his ghost. Now you have to escort him through D Street, the library, the second story cell block, and then all the way down Michigan Avenue. Meanwhile, hundreds of zombies and eventually Brutuses will try and stop you. As you go, ghosts of prisoners are lining the route you go along, cheering you on, which is a really cool visual, and it makes this step a lot more interesting to do than if it was just a plain escort quest. Use your Magmagat, use your specialist, use every tool you have at your disposal, because the ghost isn't very tanky, so you need to be careful. Once you get the ghost back to where you accepted the challenge from, he'll enter the beam and drop a red orb, ending the challenge. Lastly is the Powerhouse Challenge. First, you need to lock in spectral vision in the powerhouse, and you'll see a ghost hovering between 6 switches along the power switch wall. That kind of corner that it's in, there are 6 switches on the left and the right of it. To make sure the step works right, make sure your character says a quote acknowledging the ghost. Then you need to go to Building 64 and interact with this generator. The lights will go out and you'll have to play 5 rounds of Simon Says with these electrical panels around the room. Sequence will get longer every round, but it does not build upon itself. It'll be a whole new sequence every single round. Once you're finished, 3 of the electrical panels will be lit up for a few seconds, and you have to take note of them, because each of the panels on them in the room have a piece of paper with a symbol on it taped to them. You need to take note of the 3 symbols that are lit up after the game of Simon Says, and I would recommend writing them down to help remember. Then you pick up this punch card from the shelf and make your way to Richtofen's lab. Put the punch card into this machine and screens will be lit up across the room. Each of these screens will contain one of the symbols from Building 64, and if you interact with the screen, it'll change to show a different symbol. You need to go to the screens that show the symbols you got at the end of the Simon Says game and interact with their screens at the lab. Take note of these symbols that the screens change to, and then go back to the powerhouse. Each of the 6 switches that the ghost is floating between at powerhouse are labeled with each of the 6 alternate symbols that you would get from holding X on the screens. It's like 3 levels of symbols you gotta translate. It's too much. But as the ghost approaches the switch, he will hover his hand over for a moment. You need to Spirit Blast the ghost as he's hovering over each of the 3 switches that has the symbols you got from the lab. You shoot him while he's hovering over a switch, he'll flip it, and if you have him flip the correct 3 switches, you'll get a red orb and complete the challenge. That was step 4, the worst part of the Easter egg, easily. It's just a bunch of nonsense challenges, that some of them are fun, most of them are not. Step 5, Reflection and Loneliness. Take all the red orbs that you collected from completing the 5 challenges and insert them into the map in Richtofen's lab. Now go back to the Warden's secret room and interact with his body a final time. So place the summoning key into this chest cavity, and everyone needs to be present in the room for this next step. Once everyone is in the Warden's secret room, the group is ambushed by the Warden, who takes all the prisoners and locks them in prison cells, and you're going to lose all of your gear after this. Step 6, Reconstruction. Brutus will monologue for a little while, but once he leaves you, you'll be trapped for a minute or so. But eventually the Seagull will come and free you from your cells. You can reobtain your lost items from a sackle on the ground near the stairs. Sneak for as long as you can, but once the Warden is alerted, run back to the lab while fighting endless dogs. And it's a good idea to refill your shield blast using these dogs, as you need shield blast for the boss fight. Brutus will try and stop you once you reach the labs, but he's stopped by 3 of the ghosts, who are apparently Sal, Finn, and Billy from Mob of the Dead. They leave behind one final red orb. Place this last red orb into the map, and a secret cryopod will be revealed. Richtofen begins the thawing process on this extra cryopod, and one last door will unlock in the lab. Go through this door, up some stairs, and down some halls to be greeted by the door to the boss fight, and this is the point of no return. Once you step into the boss fight, there's no going back, so make sure you're ready. Step 7, Acceptance and Hope. This is the boss fight, and once you enter the arena, you'll just have to kill zombies, dogs, and wardens. In the middle of the arena is the Warden's dark mechanism for draining the blood. Eventually a big Warden will spawn in, surrounded by orbs. You need to shoot these orbs to destroy them, and then shield blast the big Warden. You then have to shield blast the orb above the Warden's machine, and repeat this 2 more times. You do it 3 times total. But environmental hazards start popping up as you go along. Red circles will appear around the arena, and if you're inside of them when they activate, they can one-shot you, so be very careful. Once you've spirit blasted the machine 3 times, the person playing as Richtofen, or a bot Richtofen if no one in the match is playing as him, will enter the Warden's machine. They will then switch control over to the post-Revelations Richtofen from the cryopod. As they make their way back up to the arena, an invincible giant Warden will spawn in, chasing the other players around. Once the new Richtofen arrives at the boss fight, he uses the Fire Staff Crystal to make the Warden vulnerable. The other players can then kill the big Warden, completing the Easter egg and starting the ending cutscene. I think that the Blood of the Dead Easter egg, to me, it's like a sandwich. See, the bread on the top and the bottom is like a nice, fresh, buttery brioche bun. But you used bologna as the meat in the middle, which bologna isn't terrible, but I'll still eat it, but you could have used anything else. And that basically is how I feel about this egg. I think it starts and ends amazingly. Very strong starting and ending. I love basically everything from the start up through the bird step, and then the whole ending sequence pretty much starting once the players get locked up. That's all excellent. But that whole middle chunk of the egg, I do not like whatsoever. It's not even that the challenges are bad, because I like 3 of the 5, and I understand you're getting the red orb from the challenges, but I feel like they could have had you acquire them in some other more interesting way. I don't like Easter eggs that just pad their run times with challenges, which Gorod Krovi is another example that I think fits very well. The Easter egg is still good, but all the challenges in the middle kind of drag the whole thing down for me. Same thing goes with Blood of the Dead. It's still a good Easter egg, but it could have been amazing, outstanding even. But I also have to mention that I'd assume this Easter egg sucks to do solo, which I've never tried it solo, as I never do Easter eggs solo to begin with, because I think they're more fun as a group activity in my opinion. But there's a lot of steps here that must suck. The Docs Challenge and the New Industries Challenge in particular they would just seem terrible to do solo. But despite all that, I can't give a definitive answer as to which Easter egg I prefer, because Mob of the Dead is more well designed, but there's only 3 or 4 steps in that egg that aren't just doing the other side Easter eggs to get set up. Blood of the Dead is far more ambitious, and I have to give it all the credit where it's due. This is a very cinematic Easter egg, with a lot of in-game cutscenes, a lot of dialogue sections. While I prefer Mob of the Dead's Easter egg overall, I don't dislike Blood of the Dead as much as some people do. I was expecting to hate it, but I think it's more, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed, as a dad would say. It could have been so much better, but instead, it's just good. So which of these two maps do I prefer? This is a tough one, because I feel like if I pick Mob of the Dead, people will say I'm blinded by nostalgia. If I pick Blood of the Dead, I'll be called a contrarian. I absolutely love both of these maps, so this is a very tough call, but I think I'm gonna have to go with Mob of the Dead. I think Mob of the Dead is about as close to a perfect zombies map as you can possibly get. Yeah, it's not as big as Blood, and the story and the Easter egg aren't as grandiose, but it pulls off everything that it attempts to wonderfully. The story is very tightly written and well conveyed, and the quest was quite ahead of its time, considering it has multiple endings and the first boss fight in Zombies map. The acting, music, and the general atmosphere of the map also hooked me every single time I play it. I think the reason Mob of the Dead is considered one of, if not the best Zombies map ever, is for the same reason Shawshank Redemption is revered as one of the best movies ever made. Shawshank isn't the most groundbreaking movie, and there have been bigger, more complex movies released, but everything that Shawshank Redemption does, it does very well with a timeless style that has allowed the movie to hold up for 3 decades. And although Mob of the Dead isn't that old, I feel the two are very similar, and not just because they're both prison stories. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. This is my biggest Call of Duty Zombies video yet, and I put a ton of work into making it as good as possible, so I hope you enjoy. A big part of that is that I waited until I upgraded my actual audio recording setup to make this video. You know, I've got a new microphone and an actual interfacer. I'm not using the headset mic anymore. And granted, I'm still getting used to this new equipment, so I apologize if it sounds tinny or echoey at any point. I'm learning. This is my first time using an actual microphone that's not like headset related, but you know, I really waited and invested into this video, so I really hope that it paid off with you guys. Now that this video is out, it's time to shift my focus to my next big project. And I've mentioned it before, with it being a plan to review a whole TV show through a series of videos, but I've never revealed which show. And I'm going to be reviewing the entirety of Naruto, at least that first show, not Shippuden quite yet, which I had just finished at the time of writing the script a little over a week ago, but now it's been a month and a half, 2 months since I finished watching it, and I've got quite a bit of progress done into that script. I understand anime isn't everyone's thing, but I'd be very happy if you checked out that video once it releases sometime, hopefully in the near future. But this is the end of our time together for today. Once again, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please consider leaving a like, or subscribing to show your support, as it's very much appreciated. As always, peace out and God bless. I'm Tactic Zombies, and I'll catch you guys later.
Yeah, cause I got it like that. Flow so smooth like I got it on tap. Yeah, and I'ma say it be a good night while I'm on my Yingling, while I'm drinking Bud Light. Can you get it when you miss me?